Hello everyone. The NCAA tournament is just a few hours away from beginning in earnest with the round of 64, and I'm here to make the random picks bracket. As I mentioned, I'm going to be entering a second bracket on the site, and one of the four quadrants is going to be picked all chalk, all the higher seeds. One will be picked by flipping a coin. One will be picked by using team colors to decide who wins using the Kathleen Woods formula, and another will be picked based on team mascots and which mascot is more fierce. So, for the all-chalk bracket, had to go with Kentucky's bracket because obviously they're the best team. I think they're going to advance all the way to the final. So in that bracket, I simply have 1 through 8 winning in the first round, 1 through 4 in the next round, and then a Kentucky-Duke regional final with the Wildcats advancing. And trying to figure out which brackets to make the color bracket and the mascot bracket. You know, I'm looking at the East, and I really couldn't do either of those there because for mascots, we've got like orange. You know, orange is a color. It's a small fruit. It's not fierce. There's a buckeye. You know, is that like a nut? I'm not exactly sure. So that bracket cannot be the mascot bracket, nor can it be the color bracket because all the teams in that bracket are orange or red or yellow. There's really no blues and greens, which Kathleen said, you know, the dark blues, the greens, they advance far. So the random bracket is going to be the Syracuse East Region bracket. We'll be coming back to that in a second. Moving on to the Midwest region, that's going to be our color bracket, our color challenge. So in the first round, I took UNC, Alabama, Temple. I took Ohio U because we got to have a green team somewhere, as Kathleen says, at least winning a couple of games. I took NC State, Georgetown, St. Mary's, and Kansas. So now moving on, North Carolina plays Alabama. Blue beats out red, of course, so Carolina advances. Ohio U beats out Temple because green's got to win at least a couple games. Ohio U's run is going to stop right there, though, with the Sweet 16, as North Carolina will take them out. In the bottom part of that bracket, we've got Georgetown advancing over NC State. They have some blue in them. NC State is red. Kansas advances over St. Mary's in a battle of two blue and red teams. Then Kansas beats Georgetown, North Carolina beats Ohio U, and we have the regional final with North Carolina versus Kansas. And of course, as Kathleen said in an earlier video, the dark blues always beat out the baby blues, the powder blues. They're kind of weak. So the dark blue wins. Kansas Jayhawks moving on to the Final Four from that region. Moving on to the West region, that's what we're going to have be the mascot challenge region. For the first round, I picked Michigan State, St. Louis, New Mexico, Louisville, Murray State, Marquette, Florida, and Missouri. So, the Spartans face the Billikens. I don't even know what a Billiken is. Michigan State advances. The Lobos face the Cardinals. I think a Lobo is a wolf. A wolf would eat a cardinal. New Mexico moves on. Down on the bottom bracket, the Racers and the Golden Eagles. I asked some people tonight about that, and they're like, what is a racer? Is it like a fast-moving human or something? They're out. Golden Eagles move on. And then we have the Tigers and the Gators. This was a hard one. Couldn't really decide what to pick, so I turned on Animal Planet tonight. Then I bumped into a show called Gator Boys. And these are about some guys that just jump into water in Florida, and they go grab alligators out of the water and pull them out of the water, messing with them like they're small toys. You would not mess with tigers that way. The Gators are out. Missouri moves on. Eagles and Tigers. Tigers would eat the Eagles. The Golden Eagles go down. The Spartans and the Lobos. The Spartans can stab the Lobos with their spears. So the Spartans move on. So we have a Michigan State-Missouri regional final. I posted this one on Facebook to make the decision, and there was overwhelming response was that the Spartans, would advance. Missouri's out. Michigan State makes the Final Four in that region. We're now moving on to the coin flip region. So for the first game, we have Syracuse and Kansas State. The way I'm going to decide this, by the way, is if heads comes up, then the higher seeded or favorite team wins. Because if you use your head, you probably would pick the better team. If tails comes up, then the lower seeded or underdog team wins. Because if you pull picks out of your ass, like Tom Skowski does, like Chris Oakes does, probably a bunch of other people I could name right now, then the lower seeded teams win. So, we're going to go ahead and decide based on that. So, flipping coins. Heads or tails here. Syracuse and Kansas State is the first matchup. Syracuse and Kansas State, and it comes up heads. Syracuse moves on. Next up, Wisconsin and Vanderbilt. Ooh, big game here. This could be an exciting one. Wisconsin and Vanderbilt. It is heads as well. Wisconsin moves on. I like it. Cincinnati and Florida State is the next one. Cincinnati and Florida State. Heads or tails? And it is tails! The Bearcats taking out Florida State. That would be a fairly major upset right there. Next up is Ohio State and Gonzaga. Ohio State and Gonzaga. And we have heads. Once again, Ohio State advancing past Gonzaga. All right. The next matchup we have is Syracuse and Wisconsin. Syracuse and Wisconsin. Flipping the coin, and we get tails! The Badgers! Moving on past Syracuse. Next is Ohio State and Cincinnati. Ohio State and Cincinnati, and we get tails! Oh my God! Cincinnati taking out Ohio State. No way. I hate that pick. That is not a positive one. And next we have Wisconsin versus Cincinnati. Wisconsin versus Cincinnati. And it is a head. It is a head. Wisconsin has defeated Cincinnati. Wisconsin Badgers advance to the Final Four. The Badgers! They take what they want. All right. Next we have to move on to the Wisconsin and Kansas matchup. Wisconsin, Kansas. So heads for Kansas, tails for Wisconsin here. Heads for Kansas and tails for Wisconsin. And it is a head. Rolled around a little bit, that one. Kansas Jayhawks making it to the championship game. Kentucky and Michigan State. Kentucky and Michigan State. And it is also a head. Yes. Kentucky wins. Sweet. So now we have Kentucky versus Kansas. Heads for Kentucky. Tails for Kansas. Heads for Kentucky. Tails for Kansas. And it is, off the white ball, a head. Kentucky Wildcats advance to win the championship with a Final Four of Michigan State, Kansas, and Wisconsin, with Cincinnati pulling major upsets in that bracket. All right, on to my real picks. I do make the disclaimer that I don't know much. I used to watch a lot more college basketball than I do, so my picks may be lame, but since it's my pool, I get to tell you what I think is going to happen. In the South bracket, gotta love Kentucky. Gotta love Kentucky. They're strong. I definitely feel like Kentucky's going to come out of there. I like Wichita State to take out Indiana. I think Baylor also will advance beyond Duke, so we're looking at a Kentucky-Duke or Kentucky-Baylor regional final with the Wildcats advancing. In the East region, this is the region with Syracuse and Ohio State. I definitely feel like Syracuse is still going to win a couple games, even though they just lost a good player. I like Wisconsin to beat Vanderbilt. I think Syracuse will get past Wisconsin. I do think Ohio State and Florida State will match up in the bottom half of that bracket with the Buckeyes coming out, and I like the Buckeyes to advance to the Final Four. Did have that pick before Fab Melo was declared ineligible, and I'm hoping that many of you still will take Syracuse and ride Syracuse out of that bracket, or Florida State or somebody maybe like Cincinnati, like the coin flip decided. But I like the Buckeyes. In the Midwest, you got to like Carolina. In the Midwest, I do think we're headed for a Carolina-Kansas regional final. I don't like either Temple or Michigan, but one of them's got to come out of there, so I took Michigan. I did take NC State to beat San Diego State, and in a major upset, I took Belmont to knock out Georgetown. Kansas and UNC match up in the regional final. I love the Jayhawks, but I'll tell you what, they've overachieved this year. I don't think they're as good as their record. Carolina's going to come out of there and advance to the Final Four. Finally, we move to the West bracket with Michigan State and Missouri. And boy, I can't wait to see a Michigan State-Missouri regional final. I sure hope it shapes up and comes out that way. But Michigan State, you got to like them to beat Memphis. I also took them over Louisville. I took Murray State to beat Colorado State and then knock out Marquette. Going with the Racers to win 2 games this year. Missouri would take them out at that point.